I'm here with Mike Flynt, a fellow linebacker who, at the age of 59, went back to his college alma mater for a tryout to use his last year of eligibility. His experience is the true story of the Angel Studios movie, The Senior, which will premiere in just a few days here from now. Mike, I want to welcome you to Heaven's Metal Magazine. I'm not sure how much we will discuss heavy metal music today, but I'm delighted to be talking to you about your story in the movie, The Senior.
Thanks, Doug. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You betcha. My privilege. Well, first off, how did this crazy and impossible idea of returning to college football take root in your mind?
Well, it was a one of those happenstance things. It was something is that I never planned on, never had any dream that it was going to happen. None of that. It was my greatest regret in life, losing my senior year, getting kicked off the team as team captain. I was an all-conference linebacker. I came back that senior season for one reason, and it was to win a conference championship. I just needed 6 hours to graduate, but I came back to win a conference championship. Got in a fight before school started. It was during two-a-days. I was kicked off the team and out of school, and went on with my life. 37 years later, through happenstance, I found out that I still had a semester of eligibility left, and met with the coach, was given permission to walk on the team as a linebacker. At age 59, I made the team, played my senior year, and became the oldest college linebacker in NCAA history.
That's a great story. And I love the position of linebacker. It's like the quarterback of the defense. You get
Yeah,
the
yeah,
perfect view to see the plays unfold and you get to go into action. I love it.
yeah.
Well,
There's a lot of different responsibilities at linebacker. You've got to be able to do a lot of different things.
yep, yep. Got to be smart and athletic
Yes.
combination. Well, I love a story where a person pursues a dream. There's an inner drive that I can only attribute to a God-given thing that exists in our hearts. It's a powerful thing pursuing a dream, especially against impossible odds. What were some of the obstacles that got in your way, and how did you find a way to push on in spite of that?
Well, for me, the greatest challenge, obviously, was my age and dealing with age 59 in a young man's game of American football. And I had, after I was kicked off the team and out of school, I went into the fitness business and became a strength and conditioning coach at the University of Nebraska, University of Oregon, Texas A&M. And I'm one of the original founders of the National Strength and Conditioning Association, which we have um, over 60,000 members now worldwide. And it was my coaching that enabled me to stay in great shape, because I always told my athletes I was never going to ask them to do something I wasn't willing to do myself. And so after I resigned from the coaching profession, I continued to pursue that. I always said, look, I'm about 30 days away from being in really good shape. And so when I found out that I had a semester of eligibility left and the coach gave me an opportunity to walk on the team as a linebacker, I I put the pedal to the metal, and I got in really good shape. And so that was my greatest challenge, though, recovering from the punishment that you go through during two-a-days, and that was brutal.
Hmm. The Gridiron Coaches Foundation, which exists to bridge the gap for college football players facing career-ending injuries, is going to present an award to you and Michael Chiklis, who portrayed you in the movie. Tell us about this.
Well, Michael, turns out he was 59 when he portrayed me in the movie, when they actually shot the footage of the movie. And so he had a real life taste of what I experienced during two-a-days and throughout the season. The first day of two-a-days, the coach told us, uh, we're going to find out what color your blood is. Is it yellow or is it red? And he had everything set up in circuit fashion. And he said, if we don't find out at station one by the time you get to station six, we're going to know. Well, Michael, he came in to the part playing me, but he had great muscle memory from playing high school football at elevated level, and he was a team captain. He played both ways, and he was an athlete. He was a three sport athlete, and so he had a lot of athleticism and that muscle memory, and the dedication that he brought to the table was unsurpassed. It was so important to him to do everything to 100% of his ability. And he did that. And he did an incredible job. I was there. Eileen and I were there for the whole 52 days of the shooting in Fort Worth. And I was so impressed with not only Michael, but Mary Stewart, the whole cast. They were just incredible.
That's fantastic. The fact that the Gridiron Coaches Foundation exists to help college football players who have been injured reminds me of an incredible story told to me once. I was interviewing Dudley Hall, an incredible teacher and pastor in the Fort Worth area. I called him Dr. Grace because every time I heard him speak, the grace of God came to the forefront. And I asked him, what led you to the grace of God being so key in your life and messages? And he told me that he'd been a halfback at TCU, and his goal was to perform great and tell the reporter after the game, I give all the glory and praise to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. A leg injury, however, jeopardized that future opportunity. And he said God spoke to him when he was sitting on that table and said, Dudley, I love you now on this medical table as much as I would had you won the national championship. And that's when the grace of God made sense to him.
Wow. What a
And
great story.
yeah, yeah, it's injuries can be tough to deal with.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious as to how much oversight you had in the movie. You said you were there for all the days of filming, and I'm grateful that a movie production crew would give you that much access to it. Did you have some input into how the story was told and whatnot?
Well, we really did. Eileen and I both had a lot of input into it. And at first, there was, this kind of cold feeling about it. But then when they realized where we were coming from and our heart about the production of the movie, they warmed up to us. They used us as a resource. And I had Eileen and I discussed Hollywood at great lengths, and whenever they sent us the contract, and our attorney advised us, "Hey, this is great, great contract." Then we talked about it, and we went back to our attorney and we said, "Look, we'd like for you to add a clause in the contract that they will not take the Lord's name in vain, and they will not use the name of Jesus in a disrespectful manner throughout this movie." And he said, "Okay, you're going to blow this deal." And we said, "Well, why?" And he said, "Hey, this is Hollywood, and you're taking away their creative license when you start limiting them like that." So we said, "Oh, well, anyway, put it in." Well, he called and he said they signed it. And so we had that backdrop, we had that understanding, those ground rules in place, that when we were there for that 52 days of that shooting, it was incredible, the atmosphere that we experienced throughout the whole process. I mean, it was, we could just feel the goodness and the grace and the mercy throughout through everything that those people did, the way they talked to us, the way they talked around us, um, the respect that they showed, and how they included us. They wanted us to be part of the process, and so it was a tremendous experience.
That's incredible. It's funny when I think about there's certain professions in the world like professional athletics or athleticism, law enforcement and military and auto mechanics where profanity is just kind of blue language is part of the background, it seems.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's it's when you have as much of the crew as we did from California, and these people are in the movie industry, and that's just natural to them. I mean, that's just like like we say, okay, oh wow, yeah, that's great. They no, they use they've got a whole different vocabulary that just fits in, and so they cleaned it up. They really did, and it was. They even began to comment on how wonderful the whole atmosphere was around the filming of the senior.
That's really cool. Tell me about the experience of playing in that last season. Was the movie accurate in portraying that you were only allowed on the field during one play? How'd that all go?
No, I played in the last 5 games of the season. We didn't have time. You can't take someone's life and telescope it down into 90 minutes and get everything in. It just it's not going to happen. But I did have a severe injury. I bulged 2 discs in my neck, C5 and C6, and they were badly bulged. And it was the same. It was about the same time within a 10-day time period that Kevin Everett, young man for the Buffalo Bills, he ruptured those same 2 discs. And had it not been for cryogenics, where they were able to freeze his neck on the field, he might never have walked again. But, by the grace of God, he had a full recovery. He never put another helmet on. But the orthopedist told me that it was over. He said, Mike, this has been great, but man, you can't do this. You can't risk this at your age. And I told him, I said, look, I've got a PhD in Mike Flynt. I know my body. You tell me what I need to do, and I'll get it done for you to release me to play. So he gave me specific instructions. I followed them and was able to accomplish everything that he wanted me to accomplish physically to give me a release. And so I was able to play the last 5 games of the season. And it it doesn't show it in the movie, but for people to appreciate, what they're going to see, which is amazing and tremendous amount of truth in it. My first game back on the field in 37 years, we won that game in triple overtime, 45-42. And I was on the field when we won the game. Now, obviously, as I said, in a 90-minute movie, you can't take, a third of the movie for triple overtime play. And so they did an outstanding job in condensing that, but having the same effect in that outcome.
That's awesome. So you were actually playing linebacker at age 59, taking hits and pursuing ball carriers and blitzing and taking on blockers. What was that like?
Well, it was again. I was a very good football player when I was young. My senior year at Permian High School, we won that first state championship that started the winning tradition that inspired the book and the subsequent movie Friday Night Lights.
Hmm.
And so, I'd never been hurt when I was young, and I had always stayed in great shape. And so I didn't have any baggage to bring back with me when I put that helmet on and those pads and we started into two-a-days. But as I stated earlier, I'd never played football in a 59-year-old body before. And I mean, it was the recovery time is just not there
Hmm.
when you're talking about twice a day beating your body the way you do in two-a-days in football. And so after, 2 or 3 weeks of two-a-days, it really is exhausting from a recovery standpoint. But I was able to hold my own. I really was, and I won the admiration of my teammates, and it was there were like the chest press contest with the 45-pound plate.
Oh yeah.
All that was true. All of that was really happened, and That was on a Thursday after Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday workouts,
Mhm.
uh, and then weight room workouts. And so I was exhausted, but by the grace of God, I pulled it together and was able to get it done.
That's awesome. What type of defense were you playing?
It was a 4-3, and
Okay.
but the coaches changed it up. It would depend on the offense that we lined up against. It was Division III. There was a lot of hurry up offense. A lot of things that we had to make adjustments to.
Mhm.
And after I bulged those discs in my neck, my primary function was no longer at linebacker, because that was the severity of me running and sticking my head in again. Was not something that I could, that I could chance. I just couldn't, and I knew that. And so I did play some at linebacker, but most of in those 5 games, I was a blocking back on extra points and field goals.
Cool. And when you were playing linebacker, where were you at? Are you in the middle or on the
No,
outside?
I was weak side linebacker.
All right. So my experience in two-a-days, and then I had a 24-hour experience with the Texas Longhorns, and but two-a-days was the first week of Hell Week was you're in shorts and shirts and just doing getting in shape, and the second week was in pads. It sounds like you're describing two-a-days as being in pads. Was that the case for
Yeah,
you?
that was his the whole purpose and his approach that he took in 2 days was to get guys to quit. He wanted to run them off because we had probably 110 guys coming out, and it was only going to be about a 55-man roster, and so he thought the simplest thing to do was just have them quit rather than me have to tell them that they didn't make the team. And so that was their whole plan, and they did a good job of it.
That's funny. I'm curious if the yellow collar of blood signified vomit or being a coward.
No, it was a coward.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the term was. Is they wanted to see who was willing to do what they felt like needed to be done to make that football team, and they tested your mettle, your character. So
That's good to know. It's like you're going to need that in the fourth quarter at the end of the season to know you can depend on the guy to your left and right.
yeah, and growing up in West Texas and playing football all the years that I did, it was that way. And when we put the helmets on and pads in the third grade, um, they they had at our elementary school, the coach had 3 brand new helmets that he said these helmets will go to the headhunters,
Hmm.
the 3 guys that signify uh, themselves as headhunters will get these one of these helmets. And so I got one of those helmets in the third grade. So, but that was something that in West Texas, it was just understood. That's how you played football.
Yeah, that's how you play strong safety and middle linebacker.
Yeah. Is that what
uh, Go ahead.
is that where you played?
Yeah, I played inside linebacker in a 4-4 in high
Okay.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, from your experience with Nebraska and Colorado and the Texas A&M, it sounds like you had a lot of support and fans that were probably rooting you on when you were 59 doing this crazy idea. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was Nebraska, Oregon, and Texas
That's
A&M.
right.
Yeah, I did have a tremendous amount of support from people. You know, when it went public, it went viral, and people would recognize me. Men would recognize me out places, and they would walk up and offer to shake hands, and they would ask me, "Are you Mike?" And I'd say, "Yeah," I'd shake hands with them. I'd have to ask them their name. They'd tell me their age. I'm 62 or I'm 55. And then they'd start telling me things that they had started to do since I went back to play, that things that they had just decided they'd never be able to do again, but they changed their mind, because if Mike can go back and play football, then I can do this or I can do that again. And so that was so encouraging to me, that someone was benefiting from something that I was doing, and they were benefiting in their own lives, because of a dream I was chasing.
That's really cool. I'd like to shake your hand and just say, I'm 62 and you're my hero, Mike. I'd love
Well,
to go back to UT and get 1 year of eligibility as a place kicker at
I'll,
Texas.
by UT, you mean University of Texas?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow. That would be awesome.
Yeah. When I was 19 years old, I didn't know enough to know to be in awe of being around Coach Fred Akers and the history of Texas and all the weight that carries. But the cold, hard truth of it is, when the my second day of practice, when I came to practice, my locker was empty except for my cleats hanging there. Nobody comes to talk to you and say you didn't
Yeah.
make the team. They just let you stare at your empty locker and get the hint.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's one of the cold, hard facts.
Yep.
Yeah.
So tell me about the practices and the struggles and obstacles that confronted you there.
Well, the practices were, everything was structured. Everything, after the initial few days of going through the basic drills that they would use from a conditioning standpoint, and also they wanted to find out what players they had out there that were headhunters, what players that they had out there that they could spend a tremendous amount of time focusing on the skill positions and what their capabilities were. And so after that learning curve, of what exactly, how much punishment could these players take, they began to refine that. And then we started into the drills, um, the position drills, and the skill, what skill sets you had for backing out into coverage as a linebacker, or blitzing, and playing in a down position if you had to. And so all of that, I had made up my mind when I went back that one of those linebacking positions was mine, and somebody was going to have to take it from me. And as I got further into two-a-days and saw the skill set that these young guys had, I began to think, maybe I just need to really focus on making this team and making any contribution that I can, because I knew that I was not good enough to beat out some of these younger guys in a starting position at linebacker. I just wasn't. I was a step slower. And I could do, I had the skill set, I had the knowledge. I didn't have the recovery that I needed to have to do the things that I needed to do to be a starter. Now, make a contribution, absolutely. And I was able to do that. And so, going through all those drills that, I'd been through so many times over the years when I was younger, it was exhilarating. It just was. And for me at my age, it was one of those things that I've always told people. I was a huge fan of time travel movies, that somewhere in time, Back to the Future, and that concept has always fascinated me. And that's exactly what it was like for me.
Hmm.
Being back out on that same field that I played on 37 years before, no mirrors out there where I can see the wrinkles, and I'm doing all the same things my young teammates are doing, playing that game I love so much. It was just like stepping back in time. And but this time I knew how fast it was going to go by. I knew I was going to turn around and this season was going to be over. And so I didn't waste 1 minute of it. I didn't waste any of it. All the pain,
Hmm.
uh, all the hard work, all the potential danger. I did not waste 1 second of it. And so it was all the drills, everything you just asked about, all that training, what you go through in the positions, the calls from the sidelines, what you have to adjust to depending on the offense, all of it, every bit of it was just, to me, would just put a smile on my face. This is I'm never going to be able to experience this again, and so I'm not going to miss this.
You're so wise to take that approach. I got to tell you about my book. I wrote a great American novel about my experience in high school. My senior year, we're in the playoffs in California. First round, end of the game. The referees stop the clock for no apparent reason. There's a fake fumble by the quarterback in the end zone that they declare fumble recovered for a touchdown. And me and my buddies, decades later, we're still talking about that game. So I wrote a book that's like Friday Night Lights meets Back to the Future. And the Air Force invents a time machine because my high school was at Edwards Air Force Base in the Mojave Desert, which is the flight mecca of the Air Force. So if there really was a time machine, they would test it there. And they enlist me as a civilian to test it out and to go and fix a small, insignificant event like a high school football game to see what happens with the time continuum and the ripple effect. So I go back to November of 1980 to try to overturn that game against Mammoth. And it's fraught with challenges because how do you approach a referee to talk about rules before a playoff game? They're untouchable, And so,
Yeah, yeah.
but that was a book I had to write. It came roaring out of my rib cage because I was so passionate about wishing I could go back in time to make that game right. I was
Wow.
to live vicariously through writing it. And my dream is to make that book into a movie. It's called Desert High. And so
Wow, that sounds really cool. And I love that concept. I just do. And that's why it was so profound for me when I realized, hey, I'm living my dream. I'm back in time. And so yeah, great idea. I hope you do get it made into a movie. I'll go see that.
kudos. Thanks. Um, how accurate was the movie and what creative liberties were added?
The movie was overall very accurate. There were so many things that were uh, detailed, accurate, and then there were some things where they took some license, but not a great deal. And I don't want to be give a spoiler alert about exactly what I'm talking about, but whenever Michael Chiklis continues to say, you know, they say that this is based on a true story. He said it should say this is a true story, and it's, for the most part, it is. It is.
I describe the process of your story being made into a movie.
Do what now? I'm sorry.
Describe the process of your story being made into a movie. Those things just don't happen. So if you can quickly
Well,
kind of tell us how it happened.
first of all, it was never on my radar. God gave me everything that I asked Him for. I wanted to make the team because for me, I knew that I could not overcome that regret in my life. I couldn't change the past, but I felt like if I could make that team as a linebacker, I could help a bunch of young men that I didn't know. And for me, it would change the meaning of my past.
Hmm.
And so He enabled me to do that. And then I continually talked about those guys that I let down all those years ago, that they were picked to win the conference, and they went 4-6-1 after I was kicked out. 26 of them came back at halftime. At homecoming to watch me play. And the president of the college had them out on the field, and he introduced all of them. And then they didn't know it, but he had me be there early in full uniform. And then he introduced me, and I ran out on the field to meet with them. And we all met at the 50-yard line, and a lot of tears. And one of them grabbed me and said, reading where you said you let us down all those years ago. And we never blamed you for that fight. We knew it wasn't your fault. And besides, look, because you came back to play, we're all back together again. And so those two things, and God in His mercy gave me the forgiveness I needed from my former teammates to overcome that greatest regret in my life, and then I was able to make that team in doing that. But the the concept of a movie was never on my radar. You know, Eileen and I, we couldn't believe that the number of people were interested in this thing about who cares about an old man going back to play college football. But um, Mark Giardi showed up, Invincible, Miracle on Ice, The Rookie, Game Plan, all those great sports movies. He comes back to watch me play. Then he introduced me to Bob Isley, that wrote the script. Bob Isley did Great Debaters, the movie Ray, and just a tremendous friend and script writer. And that began to make it real. But even with those great elements in place, it was 18 years. 18 years before, in God's perfect timing, it's finally happening.
That's awesome. Well, I'm afraid to run out of time. There's more we could talk about. I'd love to carry on, but I need to cut this short. But it's been a
Well,
pleasure
yeah,
having you on.
I enjoyed it. I have enjoyed it every bit of it.